Yes, the president making his first foreign policy address since taking the presidency, making it clear that the U.S. is moving back to a global governance model based on multilateralism and a clear shift from the previous administration's focus on American sovereignty. Biden making clear the U.S. commitment to international institutions, but most notably, he announced the end to the U.S. support for the war in Yemen, a war that began 6 years ago under the then Obama-Biden administration. Take a listen to what he had to say.
You have great personal courage. I've been with some of you when we've been shot at.
Oh, man. All right, that's actually a different soundbite, so we'll go ahead and talk about that. Former President Biden suggesting that he had been shot at once again. He's made those claims in the past. He wasn't specific yesterday in saying that. He's come under fire before for making claims that he'd been shot at back in 2007 when he said that he was shot at while in Iraq. He had to walk that back after veterans warned him not to exaggerate, saying that he was within the vicinity of where a shot landed. But let's talk about his foreign policy again. As I said, the new president announcing an end to the war in Yemen that began when he was last in office as vice president. Look, the Trump administration had been providing support to Saudi Arabia that was logistical and weapon support. They saw it as a way to hit at Iran, who is aligned with the Houthi rebels in Yemen. However, Joe Biden announcing that the U.S. will appoint an envoy to Yemen whose goal is to begin peace talks with the Houthi rebels, who, again, I said, are aligned with Iran. Now, the Saudi Arabian Foreign Ministry did put out a statement saying that they look forward to working with the U.S. envoy to try to reach a political solution in Yemen. And looking at the other things that the president announced yesterday, he also is making a sharp turn from the U.S. refugee program under the Trump administration, increasing the number of refugees that will come into the U.S. eightfold, over 120,000 in the first year alone, despite the ongoing coronavirus pandemic and the economic fallout of that. He also said that he'll stop the troop withdrawal from Germany that was announced under the Trump administration. Former President Trump had planned to withdraw 9,500 troops out of the European country after they didn't meet their defense spending expectations that former president set for them. But he also did have some harsh words for Russia. He condemned their jailing of the opposition leader, Alexei Navalny. He also has some other harsh rhetoric for the Kremlin, and the Kremlin fired back this morning with some critical words. But look, some U.S. foreign policy experts here in Washington, D.C. are saying it's all about what the president does in regards to Russia, not what he says. And based on the fact that he's extended the New START treaty, many here in Washington feel like the U.S. has now lost its leverage to push Russia to bring Beijing to the table in negotiating that country entering a nuclear pact. So we're now seeing exactly where he is going with his foreign policy, and it's pretty much where we thought.
And it's only just the beginning. Newsmax White House correspondent Emerald Robinson joining us live from the White House there. Emerald, thank you.
Meantime, it looks like Democrats will now be able to pass their $1.9 trillion spending bill without any support from Republican members of Congress. Newsmax national correspondent Logan Ratick live on Capitol Hill with us this morning to talk about the latest on that. Good morning, Logan.
Rachel, good morning. After 15 hours of waiting through more than 400 amendments, the Senate voted along party lines, with Vice President Harris casting the tie-breaking vote just after 5 a.m., adopting a budget blueprint for President Biden's $1.9 trillion relief plan.
Already passed its budget resolution, but will likely have to vote again today to agree on the Senate's language. Once that happens, Democrats will be able to draft a relief bill that can pass without any Republican votes under reconciliation, even though moderates like Joe Manchin say they still want a bipartisan product. Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is indicating that Democrats will push through their plan.
We must make sure our country and its citizens have the resources to survive the remaining months of challenge.
Senate Budget Committee Chairman Bernie Sanders says adoption would help millions of Americans.
This budget resolution will allow us to keep the promises we made to the American people and increase the $600 in direct payments for working class adults and their children to $2,000.
Sanders also wants a $15 federal minimum wage, but by a voice vote, senators backed an amendment from Republican Joni Ernst to, quote, prohibit the increase of the federal minimum wage during a global pandemic. A bipartisan proposal from Senators Joe Manchin and Susan Collins to prevent upper-income families from receiving stimulus payments passed 99-1, with only Kentucky Republican Rand Paul in opposition. And the clock is ticking. House and Senate committees have until February 16th to draft stimulus legislation.
And economic experts like former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers are warning that Biden's plan may be inflationary and too costly, but it remains to be seen whether the Democrats will listen to that advice, because they're already planning another reconciliation package for later this year, and that would include other items, one of them climate legislation. Back to you.
All right, Logan, Newsmax national correspondent Logan Ratick, thank you so much.
All right, here to react to all of this, Republican Congresswoman Kat Kemick of Florida. Congresswoman, good to see you. Thank you for this time on this Friday. I'm sure you've got a busy weekend ahead. I want to get your comments here. The Biden administration, as you know, has called for unity in the past. I want to know what you thought about this resolution that was just passed, some 5:30 a.m. This morning. Vice President Kamala Harris has to pass the deciding vote. Do you see unity in what you've seen within the Senate?
Oh my gosh, no. And you want to talk about unity? This is a joke. When it's evenly divided and the vice president has to be the tiebreaker on this, there is nothing bipartisan about this at all. And what we're failing to recognize is that we still have $1.3 trillion that has not been spent, that has been allocated and approved from previous COVID relief packages. Just last year, $900 billion of which just came on December 27th. This is a joke. We are literally garnishing the wages of our children and our grandchildren. Americans should be outraged about this. This was done at 5:30 this morning by the Senate. The House is going to spend the day trying to wade our way through all of this legislation, the amendments. I think there was over 500 amendments that were made. This is the blueprint, not for COVID relief. This is the blueprint for the ultra-progressive left and what they want to do to destroy America and turn us into a socialist state.
I've got other questions, but I just want to stay on that topic really quickly. So these resolutions, they're going to go back to you. They're going to go back to the House here. I think among them, the Republicans tried to push back and get the Democrats on the record on a number of things. One of them I thought was interesting was defunding the police. The support for that got every senator on the record. I believe it was 100-0 on that. Do you feel like Republicans within the Senate are doing enough, trying to get Democrats on the record, pushing back as much as possible? Because there was a vote-a-rama, if you will. It stayed up until 5:30 this morning.
Yeah, and this is really ultimately a disservice to the American people, how all this is done literally in the dead of the night. But talking about the defund police movement, you know, I'm the wife of a first responder. My husband is a SWAT medic who, as we speak, is on shift back home in my district. So this is the thing that Republicans need to do. We need to absolutely get the left on the record with where they stand on these very controversial and detrimental issues. But we need to do more. We can't just say we need to defend the police. We need to actually provide them with the resources so that they can do their jobs and protect our communities. And so we have to be doing more, both in the Senate and the House. This is going to be a very, very hot topic as we navigate through this spending bill here today.
I want to ask you about primaries. I know we're a ways away from this, but there are Republicans within the House, within the Senate that do not support President Trump, or they may have before, they don't now. Specifically, Liz Cheney. Matt Gaetz actually spoke about Liz Cheney. What are you hearing? Are there some nervous about moving forward to retaining their power now, pointing out that they no longer support the previous administration?
And well, you know, this is crazy. I supported President Trump. I voted against impeachment. I stood in objecting to the Electoral College of Arizona and Pennsylvania for election irregularities, as was my constitutional duty. But I remember very vividly as we were walking on the House floor to cast the vote on impeachment, my Republican colleagues, he made a comment. He said, well, I'm getting ready to walk into a buzzsaw face first. They know that their constituents are going to hold them accountable, and they should. They need to go home and they need to explain their position, why they did what they did. We need to stop, as Republicans, attacking each other here on the House, because look at what's just happening today. we are passing another $2 trillion of a garbage bill that is a radical left socialist wish list. This has nothing to do with COVID relief. And if we're serious about taking the House back in 2022, we need to be united. And I am sick and tired of Republicans attacking Republicans. I don't agree with what Liz Cheney did. I have stood firmly by President Trump, and there has been an overwhelming group of Americans, 74 million of us, that have resoundingly said, we want the American first agenda. It's incumbent upon us as Republicans and conservatives in the House and Senate to carry President Trump's agenda forward.
Let me ask you about this. I believe you're tapped for two committees, Agriculture and Homeland Security, which is fitting for being Florida overseeing FEMA. But I want to ask you about Marjorie Taylor Greene, the situation there, completely removed. Democrats thought, hey, nope, we don't want her on. They have the majority. It's done, just like that. What kind of precedent does this set? Do you support how that situation was handled? Have you spoken with Marjorie Taylor Greene about the situation?
Yes, I was actually on the House floor with Marjorie when the vote was being cast, and I proudly voted against Nancy Pelosi's power grab. This is a joke. If the majority in the House wants to start making mandates that they're going to decide whether a Republican or Democrat has a voice, depending on what they said even before they were a candidate for office, how about they start with their own party? This is the House of hypocrites at this point, not the House of Representatives, because Nancy Pelosi has effectively stripped Marjorie Taylor Greene of her constituents' right to a voice in Congress. This is BS, is what this is. And I hope that she looks long and hard at her own members like Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib or AOC for the nonsense that they have peddled for years and that has gone unchecked. This is a very dangerous precedent, and I absolutely believe that when we take the House back in 2022, it's going to be reciprocated.
Your state's getting a little bit of hit right now. I'll switch topics with you because over a video of a supermarket in Florida showing the entire store going maskless. This video went viral. Florida seems to have struck a balance between managing the pandemic and keeping their economy going. You can see that in the science. Let me show the viewers the grocery store scene, and I'll get your reaction.
We all fantasize about a time when we won't have to wear the masks anymore. It's not now. But some at a supermarket in Florida appear to have decided that the time is now. Look at this. This was the scene at Oaks Farm's Seed and to Table Market in Naples today. NBC's Sam Brock took this video, which went viral. It looks like it was taken pre-pandemic, right? Most customers and employees not wearing masks at all.
That's Shepard Smith from across the street commentating. But bottom line is media is hitting the Sunshine State hard over this. Nevertheless, the science isn't pointing to any major issues in comparison to other states. What are your thoughts on what you saw there at the grocery store in Naples and other places that you may have seen in your state?
I tell you, the media just won't stop when it comes to their hypocrisy. There's nothing that this is going to do to prevent the spread of COVID. The science backs that. So let's be honest. The state of Florida is doing fantastic. We have vaccinated 1.8 million people, 71% of which are seniors. And guess what? We didn't have to absolutely 100% lock down our state and have arbitrary lockdowns that have killed small businesses. Look at what's happening in California. Look at what's happening in New York. Look at their death rate compared to ours. This is just foolish nonsense talking about, oh, they're walking around maskless. We have got to get some common sense back into the discussion because it's absolutely ridiculous that people think that a thin piece of cloth is going to protect them from a virus that has killed so many people, and they just don't even get it. I mean, the lack of common sense that has happened or been a part of the conversation moving forward is laughable.
Let me ask
you. So if people want to get a vaccine, they can get a vaccine. If they don't, they don't. And if you are a vulnerable population, you can take the necessary precautions. But hyping this as though Florida is doing something wrong is ridiculous.
10 seconds for you. Super Bowl coming up in your state, in Tampa. Exciting times. Dr. Fauci says just lay low. A lot of folks are advising not to be screaming or shouting or cheering. What will you be doing?
I'll be cheering for the Tampa Bay Bucks and the NFC. That's what I'm going to be doing. And people are smart.
Quietly? Are you going to do it quietly?
The best decision. I'm actually a Minnesota Vikings fan, so I got to cheer for the NFC, but I'll be watching the Super Bowl nevertheless.
All right, Congresswoman, good to see you. Congresswoman Kat Kaming of Florida.
Newsmax TV is now America's fastest growing cable news channel. We give you the real news you need. So subscribe to our YouTube channel and give us a thumbs up. If you like this video, share it with your friends. Newsmax TV streams live on YouTube for free. Newsmax TV, real news for real people.